Hello and welcome back. It's nice to have you here, and even though I can't quite see you, I like to just imagine I'm talking to a friend. When I turn the camera on, I don't have any plan. Like, there's inspiration. It's like, oh, I want to film something, and maybe I have some ideas in my head, but when I actually start talking, I don't know where it's going to go. I let the moment and the perceived idea that somebody's out there watching, like I'm talking to a friend, even if it's one way, that really leads me to what I'm going to talk about. So today it's quite cold. It's March, and I'm about to turn 39 in a few days, and I have a almost 1 month old baby now, Amia, and she's been amazing. And of course, there's a lot of the cliche things like the sleep deprivation, and a lot of stuff people say about parenting, the big adjustment, and this and that and the other thing. But this is what I wanted. This is what my partner Aja and I wanted, and we're super excited about it. And even though, there's challenges and there's sleepless nights and things like that, she's so sweet, and it's just the coolest thing to create a human, to fall in love with somebody and to create another human, two people coming together to create something new. I just think it's the coolest thing. So I think I'll talk a bit about parenthood, but if you're not a parent, you'll still learn a lot, because my real intention is to explain this concept through parenthood that can be applied to anybody. And this concept is that, as I always talk about on my channel, when we look at these ideas of who we think we are, the false illusions of self and how they hold us back, it's the journey to kind of dissolve these false barriers that actually allow us to open up and to grow into who we are meant to be, so to speak. I say meant to be because it's all an illusion anyway, but we can at least have fun while we're playing this game of life. So a lot of parents in this day and age, I find they strive so hard to do better than their parents did. And of course you hear the cliche thing about people like, oh, they did the best they could, but, and this is like, I'm sure this comes up a lot in therapy, it's like, my parents did the best they could, but they really screwed me up, or but they neglected me or emotionally abused me or whatever the thing was. So if you've gotten to the place of they did the best they could, but, that's already obviously better than the just blame and frustration. But even if you're in the place of blame and frustration for how your parents raised you, understandable, and I think I can shed some light on some things today that just might offer you some peace. And then if you decide you want to become parents at some point, you can at least take that, and imbue good and beautiful things onto your child. So, a lot of parents these days, because their parents maybe didn't raise them as consciously, are trying to be really conscious. When our parents grew up, and I'm speaking for myself, but a lot of people I know, it's like they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have all the books to read. It seemed like the only book was like What to Expect When Expecting, or like there's like a few baby books, but my parents didn't really know what they were doing. They just became parents, and it wasn't a thing everybody was talking about, and like, oh, sleep training and early potty training, and you got to do this and that and the other thing. They were just figuring it out, which led to maybe a lot of things that didn't make sense. And then us in our generation are having to kind of like heal a lot of these wounds and traumas. And because of that, it's natural for people to want to do better than their parents did, to want to, hey, I'm going to give my parents what they couldn't give us. And what I saw was like our parents' generation, their parents were kind of in the Great Depression and in World War II, and there's a lot of challenging times. And then so our parents were like, okay, we want to provide financially and make money and have support in that way. And they weren't necessarily thinking about the emotional side as much. And then our generation comes along and it's like, oh, well, look, money doesn't buy happiness. We just want to be happy. And of course we want our kids to be happy, and we want to do good by them, and we want to give them the right foods and put them in the right fabrics and the right schools and all this stuff. And I see how like the pendulum swings deep to one side. All of a sudden it goes from like, I don't know, to we need to do the best and we need to read all the books and be perfect. And that might seem great, but it creates so much pressure. And I see a lot of parents struggling almost even more because they're trying so hard to do what their parents didn't do. They're trying so hard to do better, to be better, and to be more. And as you can see, there's a dualistic thing coming in. There's a contrasting side, and whenever somebody goes deep to one side, just like in politics, left or right, Democrat, Republican, it just creates more opposing force on the opposite side. I tend to try to, look to the middle way. It's something that the Buddha talked about a lot. There's this kind of middle path, and not that there's anything wrong with the ups and the downs, but I find that in life I used to experience more super high highs and super low lows, the highest highs, the lowest lows. And now I've gotten a bit more even keeled. And maybe the highs aren't as exciting, because I'm not seeking this extreme, but then I'm also not having these same crashes. And there's just more of a balance. I still have waves, but my waves are more like this versus, So what I've seen with parenthood is like, and it's kind of hit me the other day. I was looking at Amia and just like, oh wow, like just by default, just by being myself, I've already done enough, work and growth in my own life that I don't want to say I'm going to do better than my parents, but just at a base level, it's like, even if I don't try to be more than I am or to offer more, it's like just who I am and where I've come to and come from. It's already going to be better than probably what my parents did in the emotional state they were in. And I feel comfortable talking about that because my parents and I talk about this stuff all the time. I mean, they've both come an extremely long way and they've grown so much emotionally and spiritually and all the things, and admittedly weren't as conscious as we are now when they had us. So it's like, yeah, just by default, because of the way I live my life, even if I don't do anything extra or magical or quote unquote better, it's going to be ideally a better situation for my children. And granted, I don't know. And that's something I'm continually humbled by every day having a baby. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I know it's doing something new, taking this on, even though I've spent all these years kind of being in this more zen, trust the universe way, that having a kid challenges all that. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, falling on my face and struggling and being tired and overworked and overwhelmed, because I have this deeper understanding and this deeper way of being. And I spent many, many, many years getting to that place before having kids, getting to that place before really like choosing, my lifestyle and where I want to live. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm paraphrasing this, but Jed McKenna says, he's like, first wake up, and then after that, if you want to save the whales, like lucky whales, if you want to just whatever things you want to do, but like first wake up. Don't try to do all these things in the hopes of waking up, in the hopes of being healed and being aligned. Like, no, to wake up is a journey that has nothing to do with, it's not like, oh, once I make enough money or once I win this award or get to this status or read this many books. It's like waking up is this internal journey that we take to look at who we really are and to burn down all the false layers that are kind of keeping us stuck so that we can be in divine truth and allowance and flow and all this stuff. And that journey is a very personal journey, and it's very inward in a lot of ways. And for me, I share about this in all my books, and most of my books are free. If you click the link below, you can read them. And when I work with people, I do a lot of like one-on-one work with clients, and when I work with them, what I've noticed is like everybody I work with is already in that place. I'm not saying, hey, I'm awake, I'm enlightened, and let's get you there too. It's like, no, you're awake. It's just that I've been here long enough to kind of help you navigate the waters, to show you like, hey, you're not crazy. I have a client that I worked with who, I have many clients who go through the state where they're like, what's the point of this all? It's all crap, it's all made up, it's all an illusion, people are phonies. I feel like depressed and I'm seeing things that other people aren't seeing, and I feel crazy sometimes, and I feel this and that, and it's like, yeah, you're not crazy. I've been there. I've gone through that long enough, and now I've adjusted to the place where my life is surrounded by people that understand that. It's not just like me and everybody else looks like they're characters in this movie and they're playing pretend. But like, I've designed a life where my partner and my friends, like, we all talk about this stuff because we've all been there. But when you're first waking up and everyone around you seems unconscious and seems very egotistical, it's very challenging. And in some points, people can make you feel like you're the crazy one. So I'm just here to remind people that you're not. So the reason I bring this up is because in the journey of waking up, it's not about being better or worse or like getting higher than other people. Like, I'm in a higher elevated state. You can get to elevated states, and people can do psychedelics and all kinds of things and breath works and techniques to get to these elevated states, and they might be great and they might show you some insight, but unless you're somehow trying to live in that state all the time, which to me is a false belief and idea, it's kind of becomes, it's like, okay, cool, like, I've done all the things and gone to all the intergalactic dimensions, and now I'm here to be here. Like, I'm not trying to transcend this life. I'm here to embody it and to be in it, and one day we will all transcend. And that's how I see, having kids. It's like, I don't know what to expect, and I'm humbled by it every day, and I'm ready to take it on because I don't have any attachment to how I'm supposed to be. Oh, I need to be seen as this great father that totally gets it and tries so hard and works so hard for their family. It's like, no, I just naturally am inspired to provide as best I can for my partner and for my child, to give them a good life because it feels right. But I'm not like attaching my worth to like, oh, if my baby's crying, something must be wrong with me. That was something that my mom and I talked about many times, because when I was born, I cried a lot, and I was like, didn't want to sit on her lap, and I was very active and always kind of like running around, and she internalized that as like, oh, my son hates me. And here I am, this like infant newborn, doesn't even understand the concept of hate, and she's projecting this idea of, oh, he hates me. And so we didn't have this like lovey, cuddly relationship. It was, most of my life I was very like, stay away from me, woman. And then eventually we had a huge breakthrough. But before that, it was this massive disconnect of like, whoa. And so what I'm noticing like with Amia is when I'm holding her and she's crying, I'm not like reacting like, oh God, something's wrong. What can I do? What do I have to do to fix this? I'm just like being there and letting her cry. And of course, sometimes she needs to go to the bathroom. And we've already been, but by day 4, we started potty training her, and she's almost all the way potty trained after a month. Sometimes she needs to go to the bathroom, other times she needs to feed, and we know those signs. But if she's just crying and I just need to sit there and hold her, for a minute, a moment, and out, whatever it is, like I'll just sit there and be with her and not try to guess, and project all these things like, oh, what am I doing wrong? I'm a terrible parent. It's like, she's a baby and she's crying, and I'm learning what her needs are. And that's going to be a journey, and we're going to do that journey together. And it was so cool yesterday. I had a moment where I was looking at her and I was like, wow, I'm healing my ancestral wounds by giving her this presence. I'm seeing myself as a baby in her, crying, scared, unsure, confused, and my parents maybe not reacting in the way that like I quote unquote needed them to. And now I'm able to, because we've all gone on this journey to heal together, I can sit there with my child and be like, oh wow, I can just give you love and presence and love myself and reframe that experience of myself. And I'm not saying I'm right or that I have like all the scientific data or I'm a therapist to back all this stuff up. It's just a feeling, and maybe tomorrow that changes. So I don't want you to take the physical things that I'm saying as the truth, as though like what I'm saying is real, and if you just go do it with your kid or your one-day kid, it's going to work. But the point is, because I have this openness in this space, I can just be there to feel, to feel the moment and to make decisions and not just react because she's crying, but just to be really present with what is. If there is a moral of this video today, and there never is, but if there was, it would be going on this journey to kind of understand who you are and to burn away the false and not have attachments to who you think you need to be and all this stuff to prove yourself. I find you just wind up in this place where you're just open to what is. And I had a friend remind me recently that my humanness and my struggles are actually what make me feel connected to him. And sometimes I internalize stuff and I deal with it myself, and then once I get the clarity, I start talking about it. So mostly what I talk about is all the good stuff and the excitement and the possibility and the magic and the wonder. But I just want to be a reminder to you that like I still have rough days. I have days where I'm tired and lost and unmotivated and confused, and there were some days, there's some big things happening because we're getting ready to move, and there was stress around financial stuff and moving and baby and all the things kind of coming together, and how much I had to do, and I was exhausted and stressed and anxious about it. And I spent probably a week, like I feel like all night just kind of obsessing. But instead of making a story that it was wrong, I allowed myself to feel those feelings and to work through them and to sit with them for as many hours as it took. And then things that needed to be cleared were cleared, and the conversations that needed to be had were had, and I've had tremendous peace with it ever since. So I don't mind going to those more intense, darker places because I know where they lead. I've been in them long enough. I remember I did a video one time about depression, saying like people try to avoid depression, like, oh, you're depressed, you just need to like motivate yourself or be happy or take this medicine or whatever it is. And it's like, whatever you need to do, cool. But what I've seen is like you go into depression, go deep into like what's really going into you, going into this process, what's really making you feel depressed or not wanting to be here or not wanting to get out of bed. And by allowing yourself to go to that space, on the other side, there's tremendous peace. It's not by trying to like fight the depression, but to really like sit with it and to be with it. And it's easier said than done, but going back to this whole concept of no self and going on this journey to destroy the false, it gives you this underlying way of being that no matter what happens, you can tune back into that universal trust and guidance and understanding of the way things are, and not being in attachment, but being in just curiosity and wonder. And from there, you can make decisions, because they're not even really decisions, it's just the way. It becomes obvious. You're not trying to guess or fight or figure it out. It's just like, oh, when I sit back and I actually look and observe, the way just becomes obvious. So I hope maybe this offered something, and we'll talk soon.